Easy English audiobook.
The Last Leaf by O. Henry. In a small area west of Washington Square, the streets were crazy and broke into small strips called places. These places made strange angles and curves. One street crossed itself once or twice. An artist once saw something valuable in this street. Suppose a bill collector for paints, paper and canvas should walk this way and suddenly meet himself coming back without a cent having been paid. So to the old Greenwich Village the art people soon came, looking for north windows and old-fashioned roofs and attics and low rents. They brought some pewter mugs and a cooking dish or two from 6th Avenue and became a colony. At the top of a short 3-story brick building, Sue and Johnsy had their studio. Johnsy was short for Joanna. One was from Maine, the other from California. They met at the table d'hôte of an 8th Street Delmonico's and found their tastes in art, chicory salad, and bishop sleeves so alike that they decided to share a studio. That was in May. In November, a cold, unseen stranger, whom the doctors called pneumonia, moved about the colony, touching one here and there with his icy fingers. On the east side, this illness boldly struck its victims by the dozens, but his feet moved slowly through the maze of narrow places. Mr. Pneumonia was not a kind old man. A small woman with blood thinned by California winds was hardly fair game for him. But Johnsy he struck, and she lay barely moving on her painted iron bed, looking through the small window panes at the blank wall of the next brick house. One morning, the busy doctor invited Sue into the hallway with a serious look. "She has one chance in, let's say 10, he said as he shook down the mercury in his thermometer. "And that chance is for her to want to live. This way people have of giving up makes all our medicines look silly. Your friend has decided she's not going to get well. Has she anything on her mind?" "She wanted to paint the Bay of Naples someday," said Sue. "Paint? Nonsense. Has she anything on her mind worth thinking about? Like a man?" "A man," said Sue with a twang in her voice. "Is a man worth? But no, doctor, there is nothing like that." "Well, it is the weakness then," said the doctor. "I will do all that science can do. But whenever my patient starts thinking about her funeral, I subtract 50% from the power of medicines. If you can get her to ask about the new winter styles in sleeves, I will promise you a 1 in 5 chance for her instead of 1 in 10. After the doctor had gone, Sue went into the workroom and cried into a napkin. Then she went into Johnsy's room with her drawing board, whistling. Johnsy lay barely making a ripple under the bedclothes with her face toward the window. Sue stopped whistling, thinking she was asleep. She set up her board and began a pen and ink drawing to illustrate a magazine story. Young artists must start by drawing pictures for magazine stories that young authors write to start their careers. As Sue was sketching a pair of riding trousers and a monocle on the hero, an Idaho cowboy, she heard a low sound repeated several times. She went quickly to the bedside. Johnsy's eyes were open wide. She was looking out the window and counting backward. 12. She said, and then 11, and then 10, and 9, and then 8, and 7. Sue looked out the window. What was there to count? There was only a bare, dreary yard and the blank wall of the brick house 20 feet away. An old ivy vine, twisted and decayed at the roots, climbed halfway up the brick wall. The cold breath of autumn had stripped its leaves until its branches clung almost bare to the bricks. "What is it, dear?" asked Sue. 6, said Johnsy in a whisper. They're falling faster now. 3 days ago, there were almost 100. It made my head ache to count them. But now it's easy. There goes another one. There are only 5 left. 5 what, dear? Tell your Sue, dear. Leaves. On the ivy vine. When the last one falls, I must go too. I've known that for 3 days. Didn't the doctor tell you? Oh, I never heard such nonsense, said Sue with scorn. What have old ivy leaves to do with your getting well? And you used to love that vine so much. Don't be silly. The doctor told me this morning that your chances for getting well are 10 to 1. That's almost as good a chance as we have in New York, when we ride on streetcars or walk past a new building. Try to take some broth now, and let Sudie go back to her drawing, so she can sell it and buy wine for her sick child and pork chops for herself. You don't need to get any more wine, said Johnsy, keeping her eyes on the window. There goes another. No, I don't want any broth. That leaves just 4. I want to see the last one fall before it gets dark. Then I'll go too. Johnsy dear, said Sue, bending over her. Will you promise me to keep your eyes closed and not look out the window until I am done working? I need the light, or I would draw the shade down. Can't you draw in the other room? Asked Johnsy coldly. I'd rather be here by you, said Sue. Besides, I don't want you to keep looking at those silly ivy leaves. Tell me as soon as you have finished, said Johnsy, closing her eyes and lying white and still as a fallen statue. Because I want to see the last one fall. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of thinking. I want to let go of everything and go down, down, just like one of those poor tired leaves. Try to sleep, said Sue. I must call Berman up to be my model for the old hermit miner. I'll not be gone a minute. Don't move until I come back. Old Berman was a painter who lived on the ground floor below them. He was past 60 and had a long beard. Berman was a failure in art. For 40 years he had painted without getting close to success. He had always been about to paint a masterpiece, but had never begun it. For several years he had painted nothing except an occasional piece for money. He earned a little by serving as a model for young artists who couldn't pay for a professional. He drank too much and still talked of his coming masterpiece. For the rest, he was a fierce little old man who mocked any softness in anyone and saw himself as a guard dog for the 2 young artists above. Sue found Berman smelling strongly of gin in his dimly lit room. In one corner was a blank canvas on an easel that had been waiting for 25 years to receive the first line of the masterpiece. She told him about Johnsy's fancy and how she feared she would float away like a leaf when her hold on the world grew weaker. Old Berman, with his red eyes streaming, shouted his contempt for such silly thoughts. What? He cried. Are there people in the world who will die because leaves drop off from a vine? I have not heard of such a thing. No, I will not pose as a model for your fool hermit. Why do you allow such silly thoughts to come into her brain? Poor little Miss Johnsy. She is very ill and weak, said Sue. And the fever has left her mind full of strange fancies. Very well, Mr. Berman. If you don't want to pose for me, you needn't. But I think you are a horrid old man. You are just like a woman, yelled Berman. Who said I will not pose? Go on, I come with you. For half an hour I have been trying to say that I'm ready to pose. This is not a place for someone as good as Miss Johnsy to be sick. Someday I will paint a masterpiece, and we shall all go away. Johnsy was sleeping when they went upstairs. Sue pulled the shade down to the windowsill and motioned Berman into the other room. In there, they looked out the window fearfully at the ivy vine. Then they looked at each other without speaking. A cold rain was falling mixed with snow. Berman, in his old blue shirt, took his seat as the hermit miner on an upturned kettle. When Sue woke from an hour's sleep the next morning, she found Johnsy with dull, wide-open eyes staring at the green shade. "Pull it up, I want to see," she ordered in a whisper. Wearily Sue obeyed. But lo! After the beating rain and strong wind that had lasted all night, there yet stood against the brick wall one ivy leaf. It was the last on the vine. Still dark green near its stem, but with its edges tinted with yellow, it hung bravely from a branch 20 feet above the ground. "It is the last one," said Johnsy. "I thought it would fall during the night. I heard the wind. It will fall today, and I shall die at the same time." "Dear, dear," said Sue, leaning her face down to the pillow. "Think of me if you won't think of yourself. What would I do?" But Johnsy did not answer. The loneliest thing in the world is a soul when it is getting ready to go on its mysterious journey. The fancies seemed to possess her more strongly, as one by one the ties that bound her to friendship and to earth were loosed. The day passed, and even through the twilight, they could see the lone ivy leaf clinging to its stem against the wall. And then with the coming of the night, the north wind was again strong, while the rain still beat against the windows. When it was light enough, Johnsy commanded that the shade be raised. The ivy leaf was still there. Johnsy lay for a long time looking at it. Then she called to Sue, who was stirring her chicken broth over the gas stove. "I've been a bad girl, Sudie," said Johnsy. "Something has made that last leaf stay there to show me how wrong I was. It is a sin to want to die. You may bring me a little broth now and some milk, with a little port in it, and... No, bring me a hand mirror first, and then pack some pillows around me, and I will sit up and watch you cook." An hour later she said, "Sudie, someday I hope to paint the Bay of Naples." The doctor came in the afternoon, and Sue had an excuse to go into the hallway as he left. "Even chances," said the doctor, taking Sue's hand. "With good nursing, you'll win. And now I must see another case I have downstairs. Berman. His name is... some kind of artist, I believe. Pneumonia, too. He is an old man, and the attack is serious. There is no hope for him, but he goes to the hospital today to be made more comfortable." The next day, the doctor said to Sue, "She's out of danger, you've won. Nutrition and care now, that's all." And that afternoon, Sue came to the bed where Johnsy lay contentedly knitting a blue woolen shoulder scarf and put one arm around her. "I have something to tell you, White Mouse," she said. "Mr. Berman died of pneumonia today in the hospital. He was ill for only 2 days. The janitor found him on the morning of the first day in his room downstairs, helpless with pain. His shoes and clothing were wet through and icy cold. They couldn't imagine where he had been on such a dreadful night. And then they found a lantern still lit, a ladder, some scattered brushes, and a palette with green and yellow colours mixed on it, and... Look out the window, dear, at the last ivy leaf on the wall. Didn't you wonder why it never fluttered or moved when the wind blew? Ah, darling, it's Berman's masterpiece. He painted it there the night the last leaf fell.